All right, everybody, welcome back to MacTax. We have a very special guest today, Web3 Brian. Brian, thanks for joining us. Looking forward to having this conversation. I know we talked about topics ahead of this. So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself? I'll give everyone a brief reminder of who I am, and then we'll get right into all these topics.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you for having me. Always love chatting with you. I'm glad we could finally put it in, a more formal format. So my name is Brian Christensen. Online, I go by Web3 Brian. That's Brian with a Y, just in case you're searching me on Twitter, Discord, Instagram. So I'm an attorney. I've been practicing for 8 years, and in the last year or so, I've been took a really strong interest in everything blockchain related, Web3, NFTs, metaverse, you name it, and have learned as much as I can. Have been educating my firm. I'm at an AmLaw 200 law firm, national firm in the United States, practice U.S. law, and we've been, onboarding clients in the NFT space mostly, and it's been really fun. It's been covering a lot of areas of law. You might think, what is NFT law, but it's actually, this space is an industry, and there's a bunch of laws that apply, whether it's contract law, trademarks, securities, employment law, just the gamut. It's really, these projects are really businesses. So just like any startup might have various needs, so to do these projects and clients. So that's what I've been working on.
Very nice. And I feel like when we'll get into this more, a lot of what we've been talking about is lack of regulation. I feel like it's falling into older sections of the law, whether it's regular law or tax law.
Right.
Just to give everyone a little bit of a reminder, my name is Justin McCary, CPA, owner of MacTax CPA, doing business taxes, personal taxes, financial statements and QuickBooks, sales tax, and now lately diving in this last year heavy into NFT crypto taxes for investors and businesses. Brian, you and I met because you're still really the only lawyer I know in the space. And, I met two other accountants at VCon who didn't want to touch NFT crypto when it came to accounting. And it seems like there aren't too many professionals diving into the space. So hopefully this conversation can, help people with their questions. And I think some of the topics we were talking about are what questions should people really be asking, because we have everything available at our fingertips with Google, but what are the things people looking to get into the NFT space should think about if you're starting a business and you want to put out an NFT collection? What are some things to consider? How does that tie into traditional business? The first topic we had here was, and something you and I have talked about both with NFT clients and regular clients, is having an operating agreement in place when opening an LLC. When should somebody start thinking about that? And what are the risks? We can discuss the tax treatment as well. But if you could just dive into that a little bit, because, I think from a tax planning and a law perspective, it's always better to be prepared than attacking it, once something happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So to start, you absolutely want to be talking to professionals before you actually launch your NFT project or even run any business. First, you mentioned LLCs, but it could be that you want to have a corporation, or you want to decide on where your business entity is going to be registered, which state in the U.S. or even outside of the U.S. There's all different things to think about there when you're forming the business. It depends if you're, say LLCs are traditionally the simpler format, and it depends if you're a sole member of the LLC. If there's 2 or more members, it gets more complicated, where you have it's like a relationship. You have multiple people involved. Things change, relationships change, they evolve. People break up. People have falling out, and yeah, one of the first things you do want to have in a business is an operating agreement, because that sets out your agreement on how you're going to do, you know, hundreds of things that may come up in the future, how they're going to be resolved if and when they come up. And a lot of people will say that, you know, what are the odds of this happening or that happening? Well, all I know is that time and again, these things do happen. And then people who don't have operating agreements in place, they're now wishing they did, because, for example, you know, you might be a 2-member LLC and the other member, unfortunately, has an accident. They're either incapacitated or they die or something happens. And now you're left with the business. And, you know, if they have a spouse or they have a parent or someone else or child, you know, and there's a state planning, they're going through like how their assets are going to be given out in the state. Does the wife have control half of the company? Does the husband have half the control of your company? Can they sell the company? They have no interest, you know. So you may have somebody who was never working with you, and now you don't know. Do they have a say? Do they have a vote? You know, can they just sell it to anyone, or do you have to be given an opportunity to buy it at market rate or an agreed upon rate? And then there's just dozens of other things that can come up with an operating agreement. But that's just one of the extremes that I like to give as an example of how suddenly, you know, you are in a place where you never thought you would be, and you don't really have clear language that you can just point to and say, no, this is at the outset, this is how we agreed we would handle, you know, a sale, you know, acquisition. You know, how are we going to handle that? It would all be laid out there in a properly drafted agreement.
Right. You always, you know, hope, God forbid, nothing like that happens. And when you set up and you open the business, it might seem silly, you know, when you're just starting out. But, you know, I heard somebody say on a podcast once, you know, you want to create that operating agreement, put it in the safe, and hope we never even have to look at it. But, you know, if we need to refer to the rules in case of an accident, a disagreement, it's there. And operating agreements in an LLC, if it's a partnership structure, can be very helpful for tax purposes as well. You have the ability to structure, you know, certain income items and certain allocations and contributions to the partnership or distributions that may not be, you know, in accordance with your exact ownership percentage. For instance, you know, you may have 5% ownership, but you can layer in something that says, if X, Y, and Z happens, you get paid more than, you know, what 5% of whatever profits for the year would be.
Right. Yeah. So it can all be laid out there ahead of time, less, you know, inefficiencies, confusions, less likelihood for disputes down the road. So definitely something just starting out, have it laid out there. Yeah, absolutely.
What about on the legal side in terms of, you know, we talked about, you know, legal terms for NFT projects, consumer protection, intellectual property. What should people really be thinking about, you know, in those areas when they start to go down this road?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things to think about. That's why, you know, just like you should be, these projects should be speaking with tax professionals, as well as legal professionals, because there's, like you mentioned, there's, so there's the interesting thing too, which is going to evolve, is we might say an NFT project, and right now that could be, you know, a PFP project or one of these traditional projects, or just art where there's really not that much as far as like a roadmap. It's just you get the art, and then you might get, you know, rights to NFTs with other art in the future. But it's really going to evolve. So an NFT project could mean anything. It could be membership to a club. It could be just focusing on the community. So many things. So you really need to talk with legal counsel to find out, based on what you're trying to do, what are the legal issues that apply or may come up, or that you just want to. It may just be a discussion that can really hash out a lot of these things. But you would want to say you're issuing, let's just say traditionally, you know, 10,000 NFTs, and they're being minted, and you want to have terms of use and you want those terms of use to be legally enforceable as a contract between you and the minter, and then also those who purchase on secondary as well. So you need to know what needs to be in those terms. You need to know what's going to be enforceable versus what's not going to be enforceable. And then you also want to be working together with legal and your developer on how do you make it legally enforceable at the time of sale. So, ideally you'd want a click wrap agreement at the time of the mint where they're seeing either, a link that goes to all the terms where they have an opportunity to read and then confirm that they've read and understand them, which a lot of times you don't have anything like that. And especially when you're purchasing on secondary, a lot of times there's not even a link anywhere on these websites like OpenSea to then let the secondary purchasers know that there are terms that apply when you have an NFT with this project. So that's just one basic thing to be paying attention to and thinking about. You were
mentioning with OpenSea that there's like a push going to disclose or show a terms of service for each project before you buy on secondary.
Well, I don't know if there's a push, but I'd like to see that. You have to make it possible for the project to show their terms. I mean, right now, some projects will put in the description of the project saying, "Hey, there's terms that apply," and then showing a link to the terms on their website. So that's one way to go about it. And then there's also you can put some of the key terms in the metadata and in the properties, so that in addition to black hat and zebra skin, you could have a property that says no commercial rights or limited commercial rights, see terms of service, terms of use, etc. To just make it more apparent to those purchasing or looking to purchase what they're getting when they buy an NFT. Because as you and I both know, it's not as simple as it seems at first as what you're actually getting when you buy the NFT.
No, it never is. And there's, we've seen it in all these projects, things evolve, things change, and people get upset. And, it could lead down the road to legal action. I remember one thing you also mentioned, which was interesting, similar to any business contract, in terms of service, I think you were mentioning there could be a section saying any disputes are handled in the state of whatever for any legal disputes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That should be in the terms of use or terms of service, whatever you end up calling it, where you can say if there are any disputes that you have to that first of all, what law applies. For example, let's just say we're going to say in the agreement that the law of the state of New York applies, and then if you're going to sue us, it has to be in a court in the state of New York, which could be very important for a project that doesn't want to be, maybe the entire team is based out of New York, but there's holders all over the country, all over the world, and somebody in San Diego has an issue with you and they sue in the local court in San Diego. Well, you live in New York, and then sure, maybe it's not that big of a deal. Hey, it's cold in New York. I don't mind going to San Diego to handle this case, but then you're getting sued in Seattle. You're getting sued in Miami. You're getting sued all over, and suddenly you realize this isn't practical. I can't be in, and this is more for a bigger company and just more of the extreme. But the point is, you don't want to be in these other areas. You want to control what you can, and so to either have a local court that's near you, it's where your attorney is and is licensed to practice, and also you don't want to have to be going in all these different locations. Say you grow and you become this big successful company, lawsuits become somewhat inevitable. So you want to kind of organize it, control it. It will keep costs down, and of course you're always looking to have an advantage where you can those the rules in that state, You have counsel there. You don't want to be rushing to find local counsel in another state or country if you can avoid it. You know,
Right.
things like that.
Ideally, you'll have your legal team who drafted the terms of service ready to go and step in, if something were to happen.
Yeah. You typically, doesn't have to be who drafted it, but oftentimes that just may make sense. But there's a bunch of things that go in the terms. We could talk for hours about that, but yeah, you want to have that because that sets up the agreement with your holders.
Right. All the more reason to be prepared and get that straightened out and talk to somebody in legal ahead of time to avoid these issues or possible issues that one may not even be thinking about, or specifying where the court would be handled and all these other. There's so many other things that we could touch on. We could have a whole episode exactly just like you said on terms. What you were educating me last time too on consumer protection and also unregistered security, how, people say, oh, we could do whatever we want with NFTs and cryptos. And it's a value of this casino or this company or this project. Can you talk a little bit of what you educated me on with unregistered security and what people should look out for in terms of, I guess, profit sharing within the NFT project?
And this would be a good time to preface with, the disclaimer of that none of this is legal advice. This is obviously just a conversation with us. It's for educational purposes. No tax advice or financial advice here. Obviously, I think we would both agree there. But yeah, so first, let's touch on the consumer protection aspect. That there are existing laws that cover protections for consumers, meaning retail consumers here, where these people who are buying these NFTs may not be sophisticated individuals that fully understand what they were getting involved in. And some of these projects might have questionable marketing tactics, or even just not really in the craze. They may just be following what other projects are doing and don't realize that they may be running afoul of certain consumer protection laws that are meant to protect from deceptive practices. So that's something that projects need to look into and become educated on. And also, even though I know it's most startups, they're looking to stay lean on costs, especially legal costs, but it's important to run things by legal as often as you can, because you don't know what you don't know, and you may not realize until after the fact that there's something in your marketing, advertising, or even just having a roadmap can get you in trouble. Something that I think is going to be going away or be made be limited or made more vague are roadmaps for NFT projects, because they, in some instances, may be considered a promise, or that the project actually has the ability to provide the things that are in that roadmap, when the project might just be saying, we'd like to attempt to bring you a play to earn game, or a metaverse experience, or a real life event that all holders can attend, when they have no way of actually pulling that off, or they don't know how they would, and they just hope in the future to figure that out. They can get in trouble that way. And some of these issues haven't really played out yet, but over the next few years, we're going to see how different government bodies and agencies treat this sort of thing. We may see lawsuits both from the government and also from holders. So unfortunately, there may be some projects that are turned into examples, but I hope that as a entire space, we're able to learn from it. Then my job is to then educate on and show the examples to clients to see how hey, let's stay away from this. Let's stay away from ABC. Let's do DEF instead. And then unregistered securities. It's a whole nother topic. I am not a securities law attorney. I work with some, and they're great. And so anytime I run into securities questions, I like to loop them in and work on that together, because it's a very interesting topic. But basically, keeping it very high level, and I'm not even going to attempt to define a security because I don't even think the U.S. government has a great definition for it. But think of stocks, bonds, things like that, where you are, and you can also Google the Howey test, Howey. It's a 4-part test, but it's basically that if you have, if you make an investment into something where a third party is in charge of how that investment plays out, to give you very simplified definition, that could be a security. And so if it is, you either have to register, and this is only US law, you have to register with the SEC, or register with them, or apply for an exemption. And there's a handful of different exemptions that I'm not going to get into, but you got to do one of those things. You can't just not reach out to the SEC if it is in fact a security, because then if you've not reached out to them, it's an unregistered security, and there are all kinds of fines. Both, there's criminal trouble you could run into, really, big time fines. We're talking 250,000 and way up. So you don't want to run afoul of those laws, and there are obviously individuals in the SEC who believe that nearly all crypto and NFTs are securities, but that's still being played out in the legislature and in the courts. But something
right. It's still that gray area.
Yeah, but there are some obvious, faux pas that you want to stay away from. Like you were mentioning, I've said in the past, revenue sharing is typically something that is would be considered a security. Think of like dividends in a stock, and even anything where it's considered like, for example, like with private equity, you have a private company. It's not publicly traded; it's private. So you would bring on investors to help fund it. I formed this business. I'm going to raise $10 million so I can build the business, and so I'm giving out some equity in the company in exchange for the investment of the money. And now that person who gave the money is an investor. So there's all kinds of rules and regulations on who that can be. It makes it much easier if they're an accredited investor, which has its own definition, which I'm not going to get into. But yeah,
there's whole loads of issues on the tax side too. Even if you wanted to argue it's not it's exempt and it's private, there's certain tax information you need to collect. If they do own equity, you need to issue a K-1 or dividend with the proper tax information and do that proper reporting with the IRS and their local state body, wherever, that investor resides. And if it's a foreign person, it gets even more complicated in terms of reporting. So that's a really, good point, and something that I really don't think a lot of people are, focusing on and looking into. And I think this is something that government agencies are looking at. I think the question on the first page of the 1040, have you bought, sold anything, I'm paraphrasing, crypto related? Yes, no. I think there's a reason why that is the first question on the tax return. They want to get a sense of who's going to play nice on the honor code and who they're going to have to look into.
Absolutely, yeah. But yeah. So there's just so many things there where you could not even realize that you're running afoul of laws, and ignorance is not a defense. So you really want to get informed. And some projects have had to completely reconfigure once they realize that they may be running afoul of securities laws and other laws.
Right. Yeah. I think you said two things in there too that really kind of hit home with me. Is the first one, it always depends. That's like the magic phrase in accounting, and I'm sure it is in law. Like whenever somebody asks you something, it's, well, it depends. You have to get more facts and information before, and that's why this isn't, this is an educational conversation. It's not law or accounting advice. But also, too, that, you mentioned that it's better to run something by legal and pay the little bit of money up front and learn all these things rather than go down the road and face a huge, legal cost that you're going to have to pay to defend yourself, plus any type of settlement. And it's the same way with tax planning. If somebody mints out a collection on December 31st and they have no offsetting expenses, if you didn't do the proper tax planning, you're going to get hit with this huge tax bill. You're going to have somebody help you file the return unless you're going to, attempt to do it yourself. And so you're going to end up paying somebody to help you then, when you could have spent a little bit more money in the beginning to plan and, saved yourself a lot more money on the back end.
Yeah, absolutely. That's huge. Definitely worth it, both in tax and legal, to plan ahead, have a strategy, have those calls. Cheap becomes expensive, as you know. So, can't stress
Right.
enough that it's. I see it time and again. Smaller companies, startups, and not even that small companies, just companies wanting to focus their dollars somewhere else. They want legal on the cheap, or they just want a bare bones thing, or think they think it's just a few pages that I just need to write up, or copy and paste or something, that it's a standard thing, and they don't realize that it needs to be tailored, and it needs to be correct, and the right words need to be there, and I have to explain what they actually mean, and what ongoing obligations there are, and then I'm putting myself on the line, my practice on the line, that I'm telling you that this is what it should be. So it's and if you just decide to pull something off the internet, or just go without something, and then you realize that you're breaking the law, or somebody comes after you and sues you because of something, litigation is actually traditionally what I practice in New York, New Jersey, and that gets super expensive. Neither side is happy. It can drag on for years. It could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, depending on the size of the dispute. It could go for decades. It's not fun. So to cover yourself up front, you can really limit a ton of headaches down the line. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Hopefully, content like this can help at least bring people's awareness into beginning to research these issues on their own, to determine, when the right time is to seek some professional help, once they've kind of reached a dead end as far as what they can do on their own. We talked also about making content online. We talked about making content online, and it goes hand in hand of bringing new professionals into this space, which we talked about at the beginning. What are your thoughts on other professionals, getting into this space, trying to put out this information to try and help people? Because I just feel like it's the Wild West in terms of Web3, and it doesn't mean that laws and taxes don't apply. And I think a lot of people realized that this last year, when the market went up and things were really high and people were making a lot of money. And on the flip side, there's an opportunity to save money with this down year and on your taxes. What are your thoughts on, on you making content? Where are you at in your process, as well as thoughts on getting other people into this space who are professionals?
Yeah. Well, I do follow a number of legal professionals, tax professionals, like yourself. You're my favorite tax professional to follow. But yeah, I definitely
get out of here. Thank you.
But yeah, no. Right now, I'm still at a. As far as content, I'm mostly consuming content, learning as much as I can. I'm on the verge. I think I'm going to start posting some videos. I'm not quite sure. I might start with articles or LinkedIn posts, things like that. That might be more effective for me personally. We'll see how this podcast goes. But I think it's important.
You gotta get your word out there. You've been tremendous help just in our conversation. I know others are going to value this message. And if Gary Vee was on this he'd be ripping you apart right now to just start. So I know I got ripped apart at VCon for not being on TikTok, and so far it seemed to be good. You'll get a lot of good feedback, however method you want to put it out there.
Yeah, I was just on TikTok watching one of your videos the other day, and you had like 1,000 something. I don't know if it was likes or comments or something, but you're doing something right.
Oh, thank you.
But so I think it's a cool time where if you're a professional, you really you just put in that time to get through the learning curve of blockchain Web3. You have a real opportunity. You have an opportunity to meet new clients and other people and other professionals, and really be able to bond and make connections that may last your whole career. So I encourage it. I don't feel any kind of what do you call it? I don't feel like competitive in the sense where I'm worried of losing business from others. I think this is going to be a huge industry that there will be plenty of work for everyone, and the more the merrier. So.
I agree 100%. It's not it's not a zero-sum game in any means right now.
Yeah, and I think it's going to go mainstream. So it's just exciting to kind of be at a point where like the laws are still being written and cases are just being filed, and we're able to follow along in real time. Because I've read how when you're trying to learn things, memorize things, understand things, learning over time is the best way. So to if you cram it all in, it's going to be gone, after the test, so to speak. So by living through it, it's going to be put into, long-term memory, and that's where you can really get a mastery of things. So I'm excited for 5 years from now, 10 years, 20 years, where when the laws are more established in specifically how NFTs and crypto and whatnot are treated, that we'll be called upon, and we'll be able to continue to educate people and to continue to learn. I'll make a pact here to start getting some content out.
Awesome, love that. What about are you finding that there's professionals that are doubting what's going on with crypto and blockchain? Like, there's still this debate going on out there. I find, if it's real, if it's happening. You got people like Bill Gates saying it's fool's theory. You only buy something for it to go up, where it's, clearly there's things like VCon where it's not true. I've met you, I've met other friends, new clients. We got to experience and go to an event where we learn more about the industry. There's people building real businesses like, Flyfish, where there's real life experiences. So it's, there's really prominent people that are still kind of doubting it. Meanwhile, people like me and you are here living it and serving clients, and it's very real to us. There's been business deals done in USD. It's real money. So what are your thoughts on, other attorneys in this space that you talk to that are not in this space? Do you find that it's becoming more adopted and it's going to come mainstream?
Well, specifically attorneys, I would say that there's really a line. There's people who have taken the time to learn about it, and most of those people, I find, have a positive outlook on the space. And most of the people that are skeptical or have negative things to say, or that will say, crypto or NFTs, I think they're all scams or whatever. I find that those people either have not taken the time to really learn about the underlying technology, about distributed ledger technology, blockchain technology, and they're mostly going off of headlines. It's what they see in the paper. It's what comes up, in the news app, whatever. And that's all they're seeing. And we won't get into how the media influences behavior, but they're kind of just falling into just an overall negative view because they haven't taken the time to really understand all the use cases for the technology. And so that's not really anything bad about them as people. It's just, it's not something that they've really dug into just yet. And of course, at any moment, just like I think about mainstream adoption, it just has to make sense for the individual on some core level where they go, aha, for this benefit, I want to understand it. And sometimes you don't even have to understand it. I think about like Wi-Fi, 5G, the internet itself. I don't understand technically how it works, but it creates all these benefits for me, so I use it. So I think
you understand it enough for it to benefit you and your job, and you know enough about it without the intricacies of how a picture goes wirelessly out and comes to someone's phone.
Right.
I mean, I agree with you, and I really encourage anybody who's listening, this kind of dabbling on the edge of getting into it, to really learn and dive into it, because I think it's still early and there's an opportunity for professionals, investors, people who want to build businesses, or just to get educated on this topic. I don't think it hurts to get educated on it, especially, we hear it in all the content we consume. When you're going to a concert or something, and it's an NFT, or, you need to go, it's going to, a house sale could be on the blockchain one day. There's just so many possibilities out there. And, it's like the people who said, oh, I'll never text. Now, what's everyone doing?
Yep. Yeah, no, it's funny to me when people want to be negative about it and point out what's wrong with it, a technology, when a new technology that has things that need to be worked out, they're all actually opportunities to make an improvement. And let's just think about the American dream here, about coming up with a business idea that generates a bunch of money and makes you and your family financially sufficient. When you have a new technology that has somewhat obvious limitations, well, go out and solve that problem, come up with a solution, and you'll be financially rewarded in a lot of cases. And if it's not about money for you, you might be, you could put it out there publicly, open source software, whatever, and be known as the person who came up with that fix and improved the space. So it's easy to complain or point out the issues, but it's actually a great opportunity for people to get involved, understand it, see the limitations, and then make it better.
Yeah, absolutely. By no means is it perfect. Is the future here? But it's ever evolving, and you can't stop the progress of technology, is what we've heard time and time again. So it really is funny too. And the people who are the headline readers without ever figuring out what an NFT or crypto is outside of reading a headline have opinions on it. It really kind of is funny. Did you have, so far, I've been asking you a lot of questions. Have you had any questions from me from a tax side of thing? I know we talked about one briefly before, but anything that we've talked about thus far?
Yeah, I'm curious about, obviously, any quick and dirty tips, or like obvious, do's or don'ts that people could, set themselves up for better conversation with their accountant, or things that they can do to have a better outcome with their individual taxes per se. It would be something I'd love to hear, something that you might not have put out in a video yet, or maybe that you have. But then also, I know we were chatting something about whether it makes sense to document how you're treating crypto during buys and sells, or not buys and sells, but when you're paying somebody in crypto, if that's a good thing or not so good thing, was one of my recent questions.
Yeah, so the quick and dirty one that I would say will definitely benefit you the most is tax loss harvesting. If someone's listening to this and they haven't seen the video, there's no wash sale with crypto and NFTs. So you could sell your Ethereum if you bought it last year at the peak of the market and buy it right back. At the moment, there's no law saying that the 30-day wash sale applies. So you can harvest that tax loss if you're sitting on a loss. realize it and they'll benefit you come tax time this year. Regarding the basis question and the method of accounting, when at the end of the year, I think people are still kind of dabbling with the idea if they're an avid crypto and NFT investor, if they need to use a software to calculate their NFT crypto taxes, or if they can do, a back of the napkin calculation, or only include their, bigger transactions, or, if they sold one NFT, I'm just going to report that one NFT sale. And it's truly much more complicated. There's technically four methods to account for it. With the fourth one is specific allocation of saying, I bought this Bitcoin for $10,000, and that's the one I'm going to use. Or rather, I bought this Bitcoin last year for 69,000. I want to use that one, not the one that I have at a lower basis. That's very easy in having this conversation. If you only bought two Bitcoins in your life, you could probably manage that accounting. Most people, though, in this space have several different wallets. They're buying crypto at all points of the year. So they have a varied basis across whether it's Ethereum, Bitcoin, NFTs. At the end of the year, it's very important to take the time to use a software or contact a professional and, figure all of your crypto together in determining your gains and losses. Because you may have sold an NFT and had a big gain on it. You may have also had a loss on the Ethereum, because when you take the Ethereum and you buy that NFT, that's a taxable event, even though you never received the cash on it. So with specific allocation, it's not really practical, but there's three other methods, which is first in, first out, last in, first out, and highest in, first out, which usually yields the best result, that last one. I use Ledger right now with my clients. It's been very helpful. It allows you to pick between these three methods. And whether you use that software or another software, it still takes so much time using a software. So I would encourage people, as my advice that I haven't put out in the video, to get ahead of year end. Put your stuff into any of these softwares that you pick. Either contact a professional or take the time to start doing it now, because I've spoken to people who they can do it on their own too, but it takes them like 3 weeks, and that's normal because it doesn't bring in all the gas fees, the software, and the categorization is not right, and there's self-transfers that are not taxable. You have to review and really take the time to understand what's going on. And it's all there. It's not like, that's the great thing about, NFT and crypto, is you don't have to look back at a bank statement or business receipts. I can speak for Ledger because I use it. You can click right into Etherscan, see the transaction. You can figure out who the address was being sent to, who was purchasing it, the gas fee related to it. It's all there on the blockchain. So you don't have to ever go searching for receipts. It's all in there. You just got to take the time, run the report, figure out where you're at year to date, so you can, plan tax wise. Are you sitting on gains and you harvest some more losses and take advantage of a $3,000 maximum capital loss for the year? If you're a personal investor, and with like 3 months left in the year, this is really where you can plan. If you plan on going to your accountant in April and saying, hey, can you save me money? The year's already over. There's nothing, people can do without fudging something on the return.
Right. Yeah. Again, why it's so important to plan ahead.
Yeah, that's really, if people get one thing out of this, it's plan ahead. It absolutely is.
Yeah. Now I gotta sign up. I've been meaning to get onto Ledger or one of the other softwares and take a look. So you're saying I would be able to, on the year, see just net. I mean, so I would have to maybe. Are you able to like go in and pick certain transactions and say, like, make corrections? Is that what you're saying? Where like it might be an internal transfer between wallets, you would then be able to select, oh, this was internal, don't include it, or
that's correct. Yeah. So if like, let's say crypto is leaving one of your wallets, and for some reason the other side of it's not showing up in the software, you can add in a self-transfer to show it was a transfer. If it was a sale or a purchase, you can change the categorization, whether it was a sale or it was a self-transfer. This way it's not taxable like a sale would be. You can categorize it if it was a reward received from staking, or if it was, something, a personal transaction, you can mark that too.
That's great. Yeah. Does
So
make your life a lot easier too?
What's that?
Does the software make your life a lot easier too as an accountant?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think I would do this job without software and Excel, because manually adding things up and doing the calc is just too much, way too much. I'd like to use the software to crunch the numbers and then, analyze the law and figure out, okay, how can we, work within our means here to save you money? That's really where I enjoy it. The software is, a must, an absolute must for NFT and crypto.
Do you think that's why some of your peers who have said, I don't want anything to do with it, they're not realizing how they can be using the software to make it?
Yeah, I think so too. And I think they're also scared of the software, which I don't blame them. I think we all are scared of new technology when we first start using it, because it is complicated, and, you'll start with it and you don't really know what you're doing, but just like everything else, you don't know how to do law at first, and you spend, something new pops up, you spend 50 hours researching it, and all of a sudden it's not so bad anymore. So I think there's an opportunity for a lot of CPAs to, utilize the software and help their clients.
That's great. Yeah. Oh, one other question that, and I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but we're asking each other questions. You know how sometimes you buy an NFT and then it's either, you're trying to sell it, but no one wants to buy it, or the project kind of fizzles away. Are you getting the question of, what do I do? Like, I want to take a loss on this NFT, but there's no one who wants to buy it. Have you been asked that about, if it's been a number of years, or what you can do if technically you haven't sold it?
Yeah, there is. I haven't gotten that question yet in a while. I got that once last year, but there is what's called a worthless investment write-off, which it's always better to sell it even for a penny than to try and claim that. So, and there's also addresses, I believe, that you could send something to just like burn stuff. I haven't. This is just what people have told me. But if the project really is at zero, there's no buyers to buy your NFT. There definitely can be a worthless investment write-off, and you would essentially take your basis of what you purchased it at and claim it as a loss. And then I would, encourage people to document it, like take a screenshot, just even the OpenSea, show that there's been no transaction in the last, 90 days, and floor price is 0.001. Really prove and document the fact that it truly is worthless. And then, you kind of have some basis to stand on from there.
Yeah, that's a good thought there, where I think a lot of people might forget. They might send it to a burner, whatever it's called, address where it's getting burned, but they might not document or take the time for the screenshots, and that can be the difference there, where it can make it very obvious to the IRS that there's no activity going on, and this is a real, like, in real time, like what I was seeing.
So. Right, exactly. As long as you make a good faith effort when you're filing your taxes and you document, you're in a good spot. There's a lot of people out there not even reporting their NFT and crypto. So, I'm encouraging clients and anyone who's, listening to my content to make that good faith effort, follow the rules to the best of your ability, and do the reporting, do the documentation. This way you're covered. And that's something also to touch on, is the statute of limitations extends from 3 years to 6 years if you understate your income by 25%. And if you don't report it at all, there is no statute of limitations, so they can go back forever. So when they do figure this game out, you want to make sure you file your return, because let's say you filed it and you got it extremely wrong. Well, at least there's a 6-year limitation on it. You know, you want to try and avoid it. You want to try and get it accurate. Make sure it's within 25% of your income. This way, the statute of limitations is 3 years.
Right, right. But yeah, but if you don't report it at all, you're saying there's no statute of limitations.
Right, there's no statute. The IRS can go back as far as they want. And that's one other good positive to Zen Ledger. They have a contract with the IRS. So if you work with Zen Ledger or you work with a professional and Zen Ledger, you know, you're using some of the most up-to-date technology that we do have with the, you know, gray area of the law that we have when it comes to every transaction with NFT and cryptos is considered a taxable event.
Yeah, which is hard for some people to understand. I remember in, you know, different Discord chats where people are like, but, you know, but like how is it, you know, a taxable event? Like I was just buying the NFT, which I think is, you know, it obviously all comes back to the IRS treating crypto as property. But once you, you know, just accept that that's the rule, it's not that difficult. But I think some people just who are trying to use crypto as currency, you know, it's hard for them to grasp.
Yeah, it's really a weird concept to wrap your head around, that if I buy an NFT for 1 Ethereum or I buy a sandwich at the deli with 1 Ethereum, I have to calculate my gain or loss on that sale of Ethereum, even though I never got cash, you know, USD for it. But that's definitely one of the concepts I've been trying to drive home to people in the community. And I think a lot of people have gotten the message, but, you know, that's a good point. I got to keep, you know, driving that home so people understand it.
Yeah.
I know we've been chatting for a while, but I do want to touch on one last thing, which is just our, you know, grind and what we're doing out here with, you know, our careers when it comes to finding new clients and just, you know, work ethic. Kind of zoom out a little bit from the technicals and just talk to me a little bit about, you know, what are you doing to find clients? How are you staying motivated? And, you know, what's kind of next for you in these, you know, these next 3 months? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, for, you know, I'm at a point in my career where I'm either going to be an attorney at my firm or another firm where I'm either relying on other lawyers to bring in work, and so long as the work's there, I have a job, and if the work dries up, I won't have a job because there'll be no reason to keep me, or going out and hustling and bringing in clients and building up a book of business where, you know, I'm a little bit more in control of the work I do in my day and a little bit more financial security, because I will be bringing in, you know, work that covers my salary, and then hopefully will then cover the salary of others who will help, you know, do the work on those matters. So and
I know you're hungry. You're grinding. I know you're doing the latter.
Yeah, of course. So over these, you know, last few years, it was that's just kind of been weighing on me to you know, that how important it is to have your own clients. So when I started getting into NFTs and then on a larger scale, just anything related to blockchain technology, I realized that this is an, you know, emerging tech area where, you know, I absolutely want to learn everything I can about it and then help people out. And I think there's, like we were talking about, there's lots of issues to cover, and that people just don't know all the ways that the laws apply to their business in this industry. So yeah, so I first thing was, okay, I got to start going to conferences. So I started doing that. I went to and real life events. Actually, my first Web3 in real life event was the bubble boat that Flyfish Club put together in February of 2022.
Nice. I was jealous. I missed that.
Yeah, that was awesome. Obviously, you know, a yacht in Miami with caviar and champagne for free. Obviously, you had to have a fly fish token to be, and you had to win be selected out of members who applied. But that said, you know, no extra charge to be on the boat. But you know, I'm from the New Jersey, New York area. I flew down to Miami, got a hotel room, that kind of thing. But got to meet a bunch of the other members of the community, and that was awesome. And then bounced around, went to NFT Miami week. A few weeks later, went to VCon. That's where we officially met. Went to Permissionless actually a few days before VCon. Flew right from Palm Beach to Minneapolis to get to VCon. NFT NYC obviously here locally. But yeah, just tried to, and then obviously being on Twitter and in Discord, and I was buying NFTs and getting into these communities and chatting with other people, getting to know what they're working on, letting them know what I'm working on, and just, you know, getting involved that way, just combining both digital, you know, networking with the in real life. And the best was when I would have had been talking to somebody on Discord or Twitter or wherever, and then to get to meet them at one of these events, it really like solidified, put a face to the name, and then you continue the relationship, and it's really cool. And clients have popped up in kind of unique ways that I never would have expected. So it's fun now, and you know, it means a lot to me. So it's getting the client really is just the beginning, and then, you know, delivering, you know, great services, and maintaining that relationship and checking in with them, and, you know, trying to anticipate their needs, working within their budget. There's just, you know, a lot of things that go into it, but that actually, it keeps me motivated, because now, as you know too, it's one thing to work on a case or a matter for a client it's somebody else's client. You know, you work hard, you know, you have your integrity, but it's a whole different level when it's your client, it's your relationship. You know, if something goes wrong, like they are texting or calling your cell phone, and like, you know, you have to answer to them, and you care, you honestly just care about them as people and their businesses. So that definitely motivates me, because the other thing too, and then I'll let you give your piece too, but I'm actually, the more clients I get and the more experiences I have, that actually helps all of my other clients, past, present, and future too, because that's how you gain experience. So this unique, you know, scenario that you go through with the one client, you're now able to, in passing, you know, relay the lesson learned to your client, providing, you know, added value, and you know, that just helps everyone.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And, you know, the caring part really, I agree 100%. You know, you just want them to have the best, to be in a good situation. Yeah, my position's been kind of, you know, the same as yours. You've been to a couple more of the in-person events than I have, which is awesome. But yeah, I went to VCon. I was at the most recent one out in the Hamptons for Fly Fish. Missed you out there.
Couldn't make that one, so.
Yeah, that was another, you know, great event that they hosted. But, you know, I feel like it really is too, between the in-person and the digital. Like, you got to just get your name out there. You know, I feel like for every 100 clients I talk to, I get one maybe, and that one maybe is like a 50-50 if they're ready to meet an accountant and, you know, use a professional. The other 99, you know, most of the time have somebody that they work with. Great, awesome, you know, but that's like, and then, you know, you have to do another 100 to get that other person that's a maybe, that you'll land that 50-50 shot. But it's just, I think it is just a lot of time too. And I like to think of it too as like planting seeds out there. Like, I've heard you got to people need to get exposed to a business like 7 times before they, you know, consider using the business or the professional. in that case, it has to be positive experience. And, I see you in the Discord chat. I'm in there too. I'll literally go in there and just find people talking about taxes and respond and try and give like some educational information. I see you doing that too. So I think, it's all just, yeah, exactly. And it does definitely build on itself. Like you were saying, it's like just, the more clients you gain, the more kind of success you do for your clients, a successful return, a successful matter handled in law, that builds momentum and helps you serve your other clients. Your clients, more clients now to help connect with each other's clients if they need something, which I don't know if you've experienced. I found that cool too. When someone's looking for something, it's like, oh, my client actually does that. Let me put you two in contact, and then they can help each other.
Yeah,
so that's very cool from that angle of it as well.
That's one of my favorite things. That's the most rewarding thing, is now just being a connector. And even just like I might be in a collection, an NFT collection, and I'm just friends with this person who's working on something or wants to launch, this certain niche area, and then I have a client or there's just some other connection, or maybe just another community that I'm in, and then somebody's talking, and like I'm thinking, and like just the other day, that other person was mentioning what they were doing, and I'm like, this person's saying what they need, and it's the same thing. Like it's so rewarding to be able to connect them and then see it work out.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then those two people you connect, it's like those two people won't even end up being your clients, but two friends of theirs that hear about it, and then they'll call you up, and then they need you, and then that leads to 3 referrals. Like, it's really crazy and awesome how it all starts to work out when it comes to networking and building those relationships.
Yeah, it's still even with all the technology, like word of mouth and your reputation, it really is still the way. I think in the professional industry, is usually what it comes down to. Of course, putting yourself out there, but also just referrals are such a big part of business, because it is one of those areas of where there's people are putting a lot of trust in their accountants, in their lawyers, and their financial advisors. And oftentimes after they put their trust in you, it may be too late to change it up if they don't like the result. So it's really important for them to get it right the first time. So I understand too why it's a big decision. So some of the best marketing and advertising is when you're just working with your clients and doing a great job. That right there, you don't realize that taking that call and just like relieving their stress and them feeling like they can get back to their life, they'll remember that, and then that could be the thing that they remember when somebody's asking for a referral. Like, oh, you got to go to Justin. He took the time on busy. Not saying to overwork or not have boundaries, but you know what I mean. Something where they know that you cared, put in the work, and that could be something that they then say to somebody else, and they're like, "Give me their number, give me their email. I got to work with them." So
yeah, no, and I know you do that as well, as providing the value up front. Is also you taking a potential client call, probably giving more of your time than other professionals would as well. When you're not even engaged yet to be working with the client, is something too that whether it's putting out the educational content, answering people in the Discord, it's all those components too that I think are going to help differentiate you, and hopefully myself too in this community as we grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what was there anything else you wanted to ask or discuss that maybe I didn't think of yet?
No, I mean, I think we covered a lot, and I think you touched on it, but it is so true, how all the laws and rules are just being written and are changing, and that it's a lot to just keep up with, but that I think in a few years a lot of things will be settled and it'll be established, and I'm excited for that, but it's also it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to go through that And then I'm looking forward to like what a conversation is like in a few years with us about, you know, where things are in the space and what we're intrigued or focused or interested in on then. Because some of this stuff will just be like, oh yeah, that's the way you do it. Now I'm interested in this other thing. So
yeah, that'll be really, really fun to look back and see, you know, if the law changes, if it evolves, kind of looking back at this conversation to see, you know, where things have come from. That'll definitely be interesting. And it in our industries, it's always learning. You know, if we're not constantly learning and improving ourselves, we're falling behind. And the whole Web3 space, I feel like, has been a great opportunity for us, because when something new comes out, I feel like it always levels the playing field for professionals. It gives the new people who are young a chance to catch up to those who have been in the space for a while. And, you know, I feel like that's the only way to really differentiate yourself and be successful, is to always be like learning. Like a good week, I'd love to just spend like a half hour like learning something new just to stay on top of it. It's hard to, you know, with all the hours that our industries demand of us, you know, to take the time to do that research, to keep learning. But I'm glad you brought it up. It's so important to, you know, keep pushing yourself to learn something new. As scary as it may be, or as much as you're reading something, it's always annoying not knowing what you're reading at first. But It's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, this was great. Thank you so much for having me on. We got to do this again.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely have more content to cover. Thanks for doing this as well. Looking forward to the next time. And yeah, we'll be in touch. Good to see you as always.
Yeah. Take care.